Hi, everybody. I'm Charity Counts. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Midwest Museums. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate 2025 Distinguished Career Award recipient Sara Jane DeHoff from Toledo, Ohio. Before we begin our program, I invite my co-host for this evening, Betsy Matt Turner, to offer a land acknowledgement.
Hi, I'm Betsy Matt Turner, and in this era of virtual meetings, when digital space may substitute for our physical sense of place, it is important to redirect our attention to the land we each occupy in the moment and honor the Indigenous people who have called it home. I'm located in Davenport, Iowa, the ancestral land of the Iowa Nation, which was forcibly ceded by the Sauk and Meskwaki. I invite you to join me in acknowledging these tribes and nations, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. I have a few housekeeping notes before we begin the program today. We invite you to participate as you are comfortable. This means that you can have your video on or off throughout the program, but please keep your audio muted until we ask you to unmute. And there will be moments to clap and cheer for Sara Jane, and we hope you'll get loud for our recipient today. You can also just wave and snap your fingers if you prefer, or if you want to use your Zoom reaction tools or the chat to comment and respond, that's fine too. We have Zoom's built-in transcription feature turned on today, so you can turn captions on or off using the tools available in your Zoom window. There should be like a CC button. You need to turn that on or off. We also have an ASL interpreter with us today. I've added a spotlight to our interpreter, as well as our hosts and recipient. So, this should make sure that they're located at the top of your screen if you are using gallery view in Zoom, or if they should be the primary videos on your screen if you're in presenter view, which, by the way, you can toggle back and forth between those views. If you want to see who all's on, you can click the view button and change it to gallery view. For those of you getting to know AMM for the first time today, I'd like to provide a little bit of background on our organization. We were founded in 1927, which makes us one of the very first museum associations in the United States. We serve an 8-state region, including Ohio, where our recipient is located. We host many virtual programs in the year, but I always tell people that the awards are my favorite. It's a joy to celebrate all of our honorees each year through these events that bring together their peers in the museum community, their staff and colleagues, their family and friends, and all the people who love them. It's so much fun. I want to acknowledge people who are on with us today who are part of the program. You've already met my co-host, Betsy. Of course, our award recipient, Sara Jane DeHoff. We also have with us leadership and staff from the Toledo Museum of Art, including Adam Levine, the museum's president and CEO. And now I'll pass it back to Betsy to get the awards program started, and we'll get a chance to chat with Sara Jane.
Thanks, Charity. For more than 5 decades, Sara Jane has helped shape some of the Midwest's most innovative programs and enduring institutions. Originally from Iowa, Sara Jane relocated to Northwest Ohio in 1975 and quickly became a central figure in the region's cultural development. She has served on the boards of nearly every major arts and education organization in the Toledo area, including the Toledo Museum of Art. Sara Jane is an advocate, philanthropist, and leader whose contributions have helped shape the Toledo Museum of Art's growth and evolution. Her involvement began in 1990 when she joined the Georgia Wells Apollo Society, partnering with curators to help acquire new works for the collection. By 1995, she had joined the board of directors and was elected board chair in 2023. Sara Jane's nominators, individuals from the Toledo Museum of Art and other arts organizations across the city, attribute their success to her vision and devotion to the arts. They described her as a, quote, visionary leader and champion of education, who is, quote, deeply respected not only for her thoughtful leadership, but for the joy, curiosity, and sense of purpose she brings to every conversation. AMM is thrilled to honor Sara Jane DeHoff and recognize her tireless advocacy and visionary leadership through the Distinguished Career Award. We look forward to hearing and learning more about her path to philanthropy and arts advocacy, as well as her hopes for the arts sector during today's program. I now invite everyone here with us today to unmute or use Zoom reaction icons to join me in a round of applause for Sara Jane.
Woo!
And now I will pass it over to Adam to start the program.
Great. Thank you, Betsy, and thank you, Charity. And the work that AMM does is so important, right? And you can tell they're good at it because no one is more deserving of this award than Sara Jane, right? They've gotten it right, which is a good indication of how solid the organization and the judging process is. So there are many people here who know Sara Jane, right? There are some who don't. So we'll sort of ease into it. The program is going to be structured as sort of a fireside chat. So I will ask a question. Sara Jane has some idea of what's coming, but obviously, we'll ad lib a little bit, and we'll preserve enough time for her to make some remarks that I know she has towards the end, and to leave some time for Charity and Betsy to wind us down. And we, of course, want to leave some opportunity for you to ask questions. So if there's anything that you would like to ask, we'll preserve a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, but please feel free to pop any questions in the chat and I'll monitor those and I'll sort of pepper them in if there's something that she says that prompts a follow-up. But with that, Sara Jane, maybe just share a little bit about your background, where you're from, et cetera, but also talk about your exposure to the arts growing up.
Well, I grew up in northeast Iowa. Davenport's a little farther south. I was the youngest of 5 daughters. And my father, I have to say, in our area, we did not have art museums. But we did travel, and I did go to the Chicago Art Museum when I think I was too young to really remember much. We did travel quite a bit, but mainly it was to not populated areas. So I saw a lot of monuments, Capitol buildings. If there was a small museum, we would go to it. But I was fortunate in high school. I was one of those little towns that organized 3 towns together and put a high school out in the middle of nowhere. And they were fortunate to hire 2 young art teachers. One was music, one was art. And they were very good at taking a few of us that were interested to their college, and we would go to either an exhibit or a concert. And then when I was a senior, they proceeded to go to Minneapolis with a few of us. And we went to the art museums. We went to the Jerome Guthrie Theater. And I think that was where I have to say the impact of the arts really hit me. I think that they had done really a great job in bringing the arts into my life. And so I have thanked them as an adult. So after that, after college, I went on to Chicago. And I can remember I went regularly to the art museum, but I went to one of the first large exhibits I went to was Hopper. And I left the museum very upset. Just the feeling I got from it. When I still had the feeling about 3 weeks later, I realized what an incredible artist he was to have one painting arouse that much. And I have to say it was the painting, it was Intermission. And this woman sitting, I've never been able to go to the movie theater alone since. It was just, it had that much effect on me. So I would say that, so I think that was I would buy art in Chicago, but I think that the teachers were probably the most impactful.
Well, that is absolutely consistent with not just your passion for the arts, but also for art education. So two questions about your Chicago experience. Well, one question about your early career, right, which was so impressive and you did so much. And so in that period, you were going to museums, you were maybe beginning to collect. Were you doing anything consciously with art education yet, or did that happen only after moving to Toledo?
No, I think I was too busy getting my own education since I was going to law school at night.
Yeah, well, and
That
doing
wasn't
some real
much
estate
fun.
things.
Yeah, and after that, I was a real estate attorney for McDonald's Corporation. So I did a lot of travel to the West Coast and finally moved to San Francisco. And I proceeded to go skiing and meet my future husband from Toledo, Ohio, on the ski slope in Tahoe. And that's how I ended up in Ohio.
So before we fast forward to Ohio, I have to ask, since Intermission made such an impression on you at the Art Institute show, do you remember seeing Toledo's painting, Two on the Aisle, which must have been in the show?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I missed
That's
that.
okay. That's okay.
I can
Well,
remember.
we'll
Yeah.
we'll edit the recording with AI so that it says yes.
Okay. The thing is that we must say that maybe they didn't hang it in a prominent location.
No,
Okay.
that sounds like it sounds anyway. We'll talk to James Rondo about fixing that at the next Hopper show. So you find yourself in Toledo, Ohio, and how did you then think about your arts journey when you got on the ground here? What were the things that you rolled up your sleeves and got involved with first?
Well, let's say I started a business. And fortunately, it was in the same building as the director of the museum's wife. And so, of course, I got to know Roger Mandel, Dale, and even, my customers, because I was sort of a contemporary store that carried Marimekko, carried a lot of Scandinavian glass, which no one appreciated. And so Roger really loved, he got to buy it on sale. I remember that. Anyway, but a lot of the art museum people would shop with me on a regular, an artist in the community. And so I did get to know a lot of the people in the arts and the different art organizations. But at that time, I was, pretty much involved with a business, and it wasn't until later when I had two children and a sick husband, and after I sold my business, I got involved with the community.
And at that point, right, to tell everyone a little bit about where you decided to plug in and how that evolved in these past few decades.
Yeah, my first involvement outside of Perrysburg and Snoqualmie Valley was the Arts Commission, and and the Arts Unlimited, which really was an important organization for me because it was one sponsored by Bowling Green University, and it was 12 colleges from, I think, all of them were in the US, 10 of them were part of the Lincoln Center Institute in regard to art education. And they worked with, in the summer, they would have the teachers at the institution, and then otherwise they'd be back in the classroom. But it wasn't the music teacher and the art teacher, it was the regular teachers in the classrooms were the ones that they were working with, which was a new different idea than I'd ever thought of. And it was really, that gave me the basic of Elliot Eisner's ideas of education. It gave me the idea that you got politically involved. These are the things I carried over to my involvement with getting more knowledge from the Arts Commission, and basically gave the impact when I was at a wedding in Chicago, and I saw that there was a program that Chicago was doing. It was Gallery, I think 101 and 102, 103, one of those numbers. And it was downtown. I went to see it, and it was an incredible program where they paid young people to do art in the summer. And they exhibited it on State Street. So, of course, I bought something. And this was the forerunner to Yaw. And which was, again, it was art education that we were doing in downtown Toledo. And but it also was the idea of being involved with the Arts Commission. I started to learn more about the political involvement of, being with the Citizens for the Arts. I went on that board. I got to know some of the people at OAC and the programs they were doing. And so it was a really, as I say, that all kicked off of the Arts Unlimited, which carried to the Arts Commission, which carried to all sort of the programs I would be involved in the future. And that led to me going on after Yaw, going on the museum board. Yeah.
Well, I want to acknowledge Mark Folk on the call, as well as the director of the Arts Commission, executive director of the Arts Commission, who's done such a remarkable job for decades at this point. He started when he was 3 years old. But I think what's so impressive about that answer, Sara Jane, is you managed to, in one story, really underscore what makes you unique is you think about arts so holistically in your approach. You think about it programmatically. You think about it as a collector. You bought the work on State Street. You think about governance. You join boards. You think about advocacy. There's actually not a dimension of the arts that you don't actively try to make better. So given that you're working across all of these pillars, before peeling back sort of layers of some of them, so mixing metaphors, right? I hope your pillars aren't onions at home. But could you maybe talk a little bit about highlights over this really storied career? Are there particular moments or inflection points that you remember, whether it's in the advocacy space, the collecting space, the governance space? Anything really stand out as being formative to this sort of holistic approach to the arts?
Yeah, I did sort of run all of it all together, and so it's sort of confused. Yeah, but the thing is the highlights. I mean, I think that they do run together. I mean, because every one of them has been a piece building towards the next piece, and so the thing is that, because of Yaw, I went on the museum board, and then Roger Mandel put me on an incredible board, which was Alliance for Artist Residencies. And they had their offices in Rhode Island. And but they didn't really meet in Rhode Island. They would go to these incredible residencies around the country. And so like Rauschenberg's estate that they're just giving up, and we went there. We went to another great place on the other side of Florida. It was just constantly going to these beautiful residency programs, which I've always promoted. Every artist should do a residency. They are very special. It's time in your life to get away and just escape from all your responsibilities of every day and be able to do your work. And so they all, it isn't like you can say there was this one point in my life that just the light bulb went off and everything came together. But it was sort of like they were all little piles, you know, they all led to the next experience. And the thing is that I've been very fortunate to
Well,
have.
you are an expansive thinker and a synthetic thinker, so it's not confused at all, right? I think it's apropos of the way you approach things. And for those of us that have worked with you, it's one of the great merits, right? It's sort of something happens and you're immediately able to see all of these different possibilities and futures that emerge from it. So it's not a surprise at all, right? But then I guess to maybe then take some of these varying ways that you've engaged and sort of ask more specifically. So you just brought up your involvement with artist residencies, and of course, you've already mentioned a few times now that you collect. So maybe share some of your, favorite memories of engaging directly with artists over the years.
Well, of course, part of that answer was going to be there are two of them on. Hello, how are you? It's Flora Mace and Joy Kirkpatrick are on. And the thing is that the first experience of working with an artist was it was in 1990, and I had George invited me to go to dinner with Dale Chihuly. And so Dale and I were talking. He was being very polite and asking me what I was doing. And I told him what I was doing. At that point, I had just become chairman of the board of Calphalon. Well, he was very much into cooking. They would do a lot at the boathouse for a lot of people. And so he got very excited and he came up with the great idea of exchanging cookware for a piece of Dale's work, which I thought was a great idea, you know. And the only thing is he got his order in right away. And of course, I was busy. It was a year I was working on a cookbook and I had two little children, and I was also starting to get involved in the arts, and really didn't have any time to decide on which piece of Dale's I wanted. And after months and months, Dale got very worried that I didn't care about his work. And it was, so anyway, that was one of the experiences I had. The other was connecting with Flora and Joey. And I was in Seattle for as I started after that, buying glass and becoming involved with the Glass Art Society and going to different things. I went to something in Seattle. It was some type of fair, and one part of it was that you would go on a collector's tour and go to some studios, and we went to Flora and Joey's, and Joey's from Iowa and has about the same number of sisters that I do. And so we connected right away. And of course, they're very gracious. They get a lot of tours. And so I took it very much personally. And, and so I wanted to get back, and I was coming back in a month for a wedding. And so I said, well, I'll call you. And so I realized I was in a hotel that was just a few blocks away. So I called, and of course, the last thing they wanted was a collector walking in then, and I wasn't even a known collector yet. And so they were putting me off, and I said, well, I could see you talking on the phone. And we were looking at each other. And so I went, and I think I stayed for hours and probably almost missed the wedding event that I was supposed to be at. And we've been very close friends, and I'm very fortunate that they are about 10 to 15 minutes from my granddaughter, and they have become her aunties, and see her a lot more than I do. But I know she's in good hands. They teach her a lot. So that is my experience as a collector of someone you get to very attached and adore and love.
So I'm going to go, as I told you I might, Sarah Jane, forgive me. I'm going to go a little off piste here since you brought up skiing before. So you make friends and develop relationships wherever you go. It's no surprise that you've developed those relationships before, Joey, Dale, etc. I'm wondering then on the other elements of your work, advocacy, art education, etc. Did you have a mentor or mentors along the way, whether they became friends or not, from whom you've learned? And I ask in part because we're shortly going to ask you to give some advice, to offer some mentorship. So I'm just wondering who you really looked to and learned from over your journey in those arenas.
I look to friends. I think a lot. I look to, in the arts, I've looked to curators for advice. I've looked to directors. I've been good friends of, all the directors. But I can't, I can't name one person that has been a mentor to me. I have to say that that's maybe something that has to do with being a woman in a man's world. And for most of my life, whenever I thought I was getting a mentor, I might have got a sort of a sexual predator instead. And I think a lot of women had that problem in the men's world. Yeah. So I don't ever think of mentors. That's horrible to say, isn't it?
No, you have certainly been a mentor to me, though. And I also want to acknowledge we also have Brian Kennedy, my predecessor on the line, who was one of those directors who was a friend to you for so long. So before I ask you to, expound and give some advice, I do want to acknowledge that there is a question from Charity in the chat, which is probably the most important question you'll get, which is whether you have any favorite recipes from that cookbook you produced, and specifically what you would recommend out of it to pair with an Edward Hopper viewing.
Oh, you know what? Charity, really, they have a lot of good recipes. We really tested them. We had everybody in the community in Perrysburg and Toledo testing recipes. And a lot of, like Roger Mandel, a past director, gave a recipe. His is very good. But I have to say for my own recipe, I love my paella. I think the Arts Commission is doing, what do we call it? A cooking class teaching the paella recipe in a few weeks as a fundraiser for YAW. And a lot of people in the area can sign up. And so I try that one. And also I love my own, my daughter needs to help me on this one. It's the beet recipe, the soup, what do you call it? Help me. Somebody who knows what I'm talking
about. Is it borscht?
That's it, borscht. A great borscht recipe. Yeah. So
I've got some Eastern European stock in me. So you said the beet soup. Well, I can attest, Sarah Jane, to the fact that you are a great chef and you take rice very seriously. So it is no surprise that the paella is great. But I actually think, so this idea of creating something from scratch, right, which is true in the kitchen. And honestly, notwithstanding the complicated dynamics of why, right, the fact that you haven't had mentorship speaks to sort of the force of your personality and ability to, will your own success into existence, will things into existence. things, those things combine. That one of the most remarkable things about what you've done in Toledo is you have founded multiple things that continue to exist successfully without your active day-to-day involvement. That is hard enough to do once. People can create something, but frequently create single-threaded risk, right? Founder syndrome is a real thing. You have not just created things, but you have institutionalized them. Yaw has been brought up a number of times. The Women's Initiative, the programs that hang under the Women's Initiative at the United Way, TSA, the list goes on. So, what advice do you have for people that, for advocates, for administrators, for artists, what advice do you have for people that are trying to create something that lasts?
One is you have to remember somebody can come up with a great idea. She can even fund it. But the only thing is you really need a lot of people involved. For Yaw to last 31 years, yes, we set it up with some care. We had a good model, and I think we got the community behind it. But it does take a lot of people. And Mark, you've been one of them that have believed in it ever since you were a teacher in the Yaw program. You know, I think that I really believe that with every program you start, you have to, think of education with it, and for it to be a success. I think that, and it has to be involve community, community outreach. I think that for institutions today, I think that it's very important to involve education. I don't know if this is the question you want to put it into, but it's the question in regard to advice for the future. And I think that we all, as everyone involved in the arts, involved with community institutions, we have to be worried if we do not include education and outreach. We will have a problem in the future because I never thought it would occur in Perrysburg, Ohio, but there's a good chance we're going to lose all our art programs. Well, this is the future voters of tomorrow. And if they're not getting exposed to art and they're not getting exposed to the museum, why would they ever vote for anything on a ballot? And the thing about it is we have to make sure that they are getting an education of the importance of the arts. And we have to realize what the importance of the arts are. I had a wonderful friend at the Alliance for Artists Residencies, and she was head of a wonderful program in Virginia. And she went in to fundraise to a state senator, and he said he just didn't believe in funding art programs. And she looked at him and she said, well, I'll have to have your jacket, your tie, because those were all designed by artists. She went through his desk, his chair. We all know that those were designed by creative people in the art background. And you go through your computer, again, and very much designed. And the thing is that when you get down to it, his speechwriter, his videotaper of all his campaign, we're all our artist trained people. And so if we don't have those people getting any training in the arts or any feeling to go into the arts, what is our future going to look like? We're going to be what China was, that they can copy, but we can't create anything new. And so, yes, it's very important, but we also have to have our future voters put on the ballot and vote for funding, vote for politicians that have can vote for money for the arts, for the institutions, the cultural institutions. Otherwise, those institutions are going to be empty, and they're just going to be falling down like, you know, an antique. You know, so it is very important, but it's very important for us today to teach and educate, to know who we're voting for, and to educate others of why it's important to vote for somebody because they support the arts. And we have to let our memberships and our boards know that this is their responsibility to help them.
You have consistently beat the drum for creating arts literacy broadly, but also creating a next generation that values the arts in the service of, creating that flywheel of ongoing support for the arts. And I think you've been very clear in this conversation and elsewhere about the importance not just of arts education and the arts as a career, but also arts integrated pedagogy, right? Which is the core of TSA and the core of what you experienced and Arts Unlimited. And also, I think you have practiced what you've preached in terms of your advocacy, and to make it very clear across the political spectrum, right? That it is about making sure everyone understands the importance of the arts, right? And of arts education. And you've done a remarkable job of it, which is why you're so deserving of this award. Thank you, Sara Jane. So in the interest of trying to land this plane on time, right, I thank you all for joining us for this fireside chat. I'm going to turn it back to you, Sara Jane, for some remarks, and then Charity and Betsy will take over and bring us to close. But thank you for letting me share the floor with you, Sara Jane. No one could be more deserving.
All right. I want to thank you all for attending. I think my first thing was I hoped it all be people I didn't know, as I speak better to strangers. But thank you for putting up with my answers. And this is the lovely award I got. And thank you so much. I really appreciated you giving me this award. I was sorry I couldn't come this summer to Davenport. That was where I was supposed to go to school. Instead, I dropped out and stayed at the place I started the summer in June before. I'm not sure if my parents didn't regret that I didn't go to the Catholic girls' school in Davenport. But anyway, thank you again. And I will treasure the award. And thank you all for coming to hear my comments.
Well, it is absolutely our pleasure, Sara Jane. It's been wonderful to get to hear more about your career and your perspective during this conversation with Adam. So thank you for being vulnerable and open to sharing your time with us this way. We have just a few minutes before we wrap up, and I felt like I did want to take a moment to just say that if somebody in the room is feeling super compelled to say something about Sara Jane, I think we can open it up to one comment or two. So just raise your hand if you desire to do that. No, okay, that's fine. I also want to just say that I'm very curious. Obviously, I enjoyed this conversation. If you create art yourself, Sara Jane,
No, I'm sorry. I have to only support art.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. The idea of putting a piece of paper and a pencil and asking me to draw something is just impossible. It was years of, I have to say, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but a Catholic school where the nun stood over me with a ruler and said, "You draw within in the line, and all trees have to be green."
Yeah. Yeah.
The creativity was taken away.
Well, I'm
very
glad that
wise
you
man.
decided to channel your energies to the support of the arts. It sounds like you've been very, very impactful in your career. So thank you so much. I do want Betsy to offer final remarks and invite all of us to applaud one more time before we go. So I'm going to hand it off to her to close us out here. And just want to say again, appreciate you all being here to celebrate Sara Jane.
And one more comment. Thank you, Adam, for nominating me.
We all did. You say it takes a village. We all did.
All right. Thank you too, Mark.
Well, congratulations once again, Sara Jane, and thank you, Adam, for moderating this really wonderful, inspiring conversation. Let's all unmute one more time for a round of applause.
Congratulations.
To everyone listening at home or at work, we hope this event brought you some joy or inspiration at the end of your Monday work day. And we hope to see you on our next virtual awards event on Monday, November 3rd, to honor this year's Groundbreakers Award recipient. In the meantime, have a great week, and thanks for tuning in.